What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, nieces and nephews? Welcome back to another episode of Too Good to Be True. I am your host, Drew Davis, certified life and performance coach. And as you fall up in here on a Friday, you guys already know what I'm about. You don't come in here half stepping, don't take your foot off the pedal because it's Friday. We need to press down even harder. So I hope the week has treated you great. If it hasn't, you got today to bounce back and you got this weekend to recuperate and bounce back to attack it hard again next week, like the only way you know how. But outside of that, I love to stop in here. Fridays are just we give a little quick message, and there's sometimes they go a little longer, sometimes a little shorter. But in essence, just stopping in here, we are right in the middle of preseason. And there's been a week or so of preseason games that have gone by, guys trying to make the team. And I just had a flashback to something that's funny, and it's not really funny, but it's something that everybody that's played a professional sport has kind of had to look over their shoulder and be aware for. Maybe for basketball or other sports, is being traded. Maybe it's not as cutthroat as getting put up and put down on a G League versus getting put on an NBA team. But I speak about what I know. And what I know is how the NFL goes and how they go about doing their business. And so one of the most grueling times is training camp for NFL football and also fall camp for college football. But on the forefront of NFL football, you're going through this thing called training camp, and there are so many numbers getting pushed around, and there's so much balancing work that needs to be done. There are players that are let go, there's players that are signed, there are players that get injured, there are players that get put on IR, get cashed out to no longer show their face there again because they're injured and they're hurt for an extended period of time. So they don't have a chance to make the team. So a team might cut them a check and say, "Hey, here's your injury settlement. You're supposed to miss 4 weeks with torn meniscus. Here's X amount of dollars. We paid you out. Go ahead, get your surgery, do your rehab, but you're not on our roster anymore." But one of the biggest things and one of the most worrisome things around this time is cut day. And now cut day has changed since back in the day when I was playing, because cut days changed because now they pretty much only have one cut day. But outside of that, you can still get cut anywhere from the start of training camp up until, that the day or two after your last preseason game, which a lot of the league has to make cuts. So just hang with me here. I'm gonna try to explain it. So for the novices out there that don't know, when I was coming up and when I was playing, they did cuts on a regular basis. And, from one preseason to another, they had to go from 90 players down to maybe 80 or 75. And then from another game, they had to go down from 75 to maybe 62. And then they had final cuts to maybe go down from 62 to the 53-man roster that they'll take into the season. Now, the numbers, I'm off on the numbers, but I'm just saying every week you knew that they were going to have to let a certain amount of people go. Since then, the time has changed. A couple years ago, the league, I don't want to say it's from the CBA, but the league kind of decided, hey, instead of us, taking down these numbers every week after every preseason game, how about let's be able to keep the roster at its size of 90 and, do one final cut day, those last two games after the preseason ends to get the roster down to 53. So back in the day, you would see roster cuts every week. Now you kind of won't see that big cut of players getting gone until that last preseason game, after that last preseason game. But you'll still see cuts within that because, like I said, there are injuries or there are people that miss curfew or were late and the coaches don't want to deal with it anymore. The coaches and the GMs and the management don't want to deal with it. So instead of beating their head against the wall, they're going to need to get somebody else in there that can play that same position. Or maybe it's not even that same position. Maybe they have, an excess amount of DBs and they're short on the offensive line. And so they need to bring another offensive lineman in. They might cut a DB and bring in an offensive lineman, so the numbers balance out. So that's just the gist of it. But what this episode is for the vaunted words that you never want to hear from staff. And everybody knows on the football team or on a team, there's a certain person that comes and gets you either when you're in trouble or when the head coach needs to see you and or when you need to get cut. And that one person is pretty much the person that everybody knows for this certain role. In hindsight, It's not a bad thing. It's if this person comes and gets you, it's not good. And just because this person's the one that delivers the bad news. But the word or the phrase that they use when they come get you is very simple and it goes just like this. Hey, Drew, coach wants to see you and bring your playbook. It's as simple as that. Coach want to see you, bring your playbook. And you never want this guy to approach you saying those words because you know that either your time with that team has come to an end, or even worse, your whole NFL career has come to an end because it's kind of hard to get picked up depending on when you get cut. So, but it also, if you're getting cut, it means you probably either you weren't that good or you haven't been performing that well. So it's a kind of smorgasbord of things that can go into it. And so he'll tell you, "Hey, coach want to see you. Bring your playbook." Now, coach want to see you. Okay, that might be all right. Coach wants to talk to me about how I played this week or something that happened. But when they say bring your playbook, that right there is the key that you will not be coming back. It's tough to talk about because I've been cut twice, and both times that I was cut in the NFL, I was put on the practice squad. So the times that I got cut in the NFL, it was after that last preseason game. So I had made it through all of training camp and made it to the last preseason game, and then I got brought in for cuts on the last day. So on the last day, so the day after the last preseason game, they'll tell everybody, hey, stay in the area, keep your telephones on. We'll be making calls to cut down our roster, and you need to be reachable. Now, I played with guys like Julio Jones, Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez, Matt Ryan, Sean Witherspoon. I'm thinking of anybody else that can go into that ilk of guys who don't have to worry about cut day. Um, and if you're a guy who's a free agent or a late round pick or a guy that's later in your career and you're a journeyman, you gotta kind of be aware of that last day because if you're a borderline guy, you don't want to act like you made the team and go travel and go home and go to Vegas and thinking you're on the team and you get that call that you need to come in and see coach and you can't make it back. Because in order for them to cut you, they kind of need to have that conversation with you, and they like to have that conversation face to face. So both times I got cut my very first year. It was an NFL lockout. We got in there late. They're trying to get all the ones and the starters up to speed because they got a season to play. I was like, third or fourth string the whole time. I wasn't getting much. I didn't get many plays or many balls thrown towards me. So it was just kind of one of those things where you were just around. And so when cut day rolled around for this one, I was kind of prepared to get cut. And so when they called me on the phone and they told me to come in and they put me in this team room and you look around and it's the other players that are getting cut. A lot of the players are upset. Some of the players have been cut before, so it's just business to them and they're like, "All right, cool, it didn't work out here." Other players are really agitated or just really nervous because it's their first time getting cut. All of that very understandable. But all of you guys are in the same room, and one by one, they take you up to talk to either the head coach and the GM, or just the head coach, or just the GM. Different teams handle it differently. And so I remember when I went up after my very first year and they cut me, and they're like, "Hey, we got a lot of wide receivers. We liked a lot of stuff that you did in camp, but we're gonna cut you because we got to get our roster size down to 53." I was like, "Okay, cool, no problem, coach. I got you. I understand." But one big thing that they told me is even though they were cutting me, they wanted me to be on their practice squad. And so what the practice squad is, it's just like if you're in college and you have to redshirt. You pretty much are doing everything in practice. You're working on the scout team. You're running down on kickoff and kickoff return. You're serving as a look for the team that you guys are going to be playing that week. You're doing everything except playing in the game that weekend. Same goes with the NFL. You're on the practice squad, you show up, you're in all the meetings, you're at weightlifting sessions. You're pretty much, I'm not going to say, I'm going to say it. You're working harder than the starters because you got to go wherever they need you. You got to run however many plays they need you to run in order for them to get the look that they're having for that week. And so it was a surprise to me because I wasn't really aware of that, you had to get cut in order to make the practice squad. And so they cut me, but then they told me they wanted me on their practice squad. So I had to kind of hang around in the area. And so I was kind of confused. I was like, okay. So I hung around for about a day, 24 hours until I cleared waivers. And then I was able to sign on their practice squad, and I was on the practice squad my first year in Atlanta. Now, fast forward to year two. I have a whole year under my belt. I have a whole off season of workouts, OTAs, mini camp, all that stuff. We go into training camp. I know what to expect. I know the playbook a lot better. I've done a lot of things that I need to do. I come out my second year, have a really, really good training camp, make a lot of plays in the preseason games and in practices, and I'm feeling really good. I'm looking at our numbers because as wide receivers, we usually keep on the active roster, you keep probably maybe 5 or 6 wide receivers, depending on what offense you run. And then you might keep, as I knew, two on the practice squad. But this year, my mindset's different. I'm like, nah, bro, we're not doing practice squad this year. We want a bigger check. Because if you're on the practice squad, I think around that time you were making maybe 80 or 90,000, maybe close to six figures, somewhere around there. But if you're on the active roster and with the contract that you have, you're probably making around, let's say, 350K, 350, 400K. And that's that around the time that was league minimum. And so I'm like, nah, we want them big checks. We want 350, 400K. So it comes down to it. We get through the last preseason game. I'm feeling really good about myself. I'm telling myself, man, my phone's not gonna ring. I had a good fall camp. I made plays like they be crazy to let me go. And I get a call. Hey, Drew, are you around? Come in the facility. Coach wants to see you. Bring your playbook. The words you do not want to hear. And so now this time around, when I get cut, I'm hot. I'm hot because, like I said, I've had a really good training camp. I'm not gonna say it was like better than Julio's and Roddy's, but it was up there. Like I put my best foot forward. And the worst thing about getting cut is that they sit you down and they tell you all these things, and pretty much there's nothing that you did wrong. They're like, hey, you had a great camp, you made plays, you did everything we asked, you made tackles on special teams, you helped filled up a Gatorade bottle, and you were feeding players the snacks, and when you guys had hydration station, you did everything, you went far and beyond and everything we needed you to do, but we just have to let you go because we don't have room on this roster. And we decided we want another player on the active roster. And so you're going to be on the practice squad again if you clear waivers. So now this time around, I was hot. That was probably the maddest, and I know that word is not grammatically correct. That's the maddest, the most mad, the most maddest I've been in my whole life, getting cut that day, having to go back to my apartment, wait a full 24 hours before I was able to clear waivers and sign and be on the practice squad again. And I was in a bad mood that whole week. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. The people that know me, they know, man, Drew's always in a good mood. He's always a little preppy. He's always gonna have fun and smiling. I was mad. And the person that they chose to uh, put on the active roster over me, shout out Nick Toon. His name is Nick Toon. He was a late round pick a couple years before that, kind of a journeyman, but he was a punt returner, kick returner, small white dude, real shifty, good. He was good. Was he better than me? Did he perform better than me? No, I don't think so. So, Nick, if you hear this, all love, baby. But so I had to go to practice, be on scout team, on the look team for the offense, for the defense, for the special teams. And I was in a bad mood that whole week. I would come back to my apartment and I'll go right to my room and I'll just be in my room, kind of sulking and mad and upset and just woe is me, right? And y'all know how God works, right? So that final day, I think it was that Friday. Friday, we have our practice to kind of smooth everything over to get ready for the game on Sunday. But it's pretty much our last look going into the weekend on plays that are going to work and that we're going to run to be successful on Sunday. And lo and behold, this dude that they picked over me to put on the roster, he does something like tears his AC, not his ACL. He tears his hamstring at the towards the end of practice, or he gets injured. Now, at the time, I don't know his hamstring is torn or pulled or whatever it might be. I just kind of knew that he was a little bit gimpy after. And so I guess they looked at him, they examined him in the training room, and they found out that, yeah, he's not. We're going to need to put him on IR. We're going to need to release him, and we need to pull someone else up on the active roster. And so I remember I got a call on Saturday morning to come in early, which scared me a little bit because I was like, dang, these dudes about to cut me. And I barely made it through a week already. Come in and they pretty much tell me, hey, Nick had an injury. We got to put him on IR. We're going to pull you up off a practice squad and we're going to suit you up this weekend at our first game at Kansas City, in Kansas City, Missouri, against the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. So this little kid inside me just was happy. I wasn't smiling at the time because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I was afraid that they were going to cut me. But once I realized that I was finally going to get my chance to be on active roster, I was like, man, I'm trying not to show it. I'm walking around. There's a couple teammates that know because they know that Nick got hurt. So everybody's wondering like, who are they going to bring up? And they end up bringing me up. And so I went that weekend, and even when we no, that day I had to pack a bag to go to actually leave with them to go to Kansas City. So I had to be prepared. And so I played my first game. I might have played, no more than 10 or 15 plays. I played on kick return and I think on punt return. But that was my first bit of NFL action in a regular season game. And we won that game. We won that game. Tony Gonzalez caught a touchdown in Kansas City, which was his former team that he cut his teeth with, that he's a very, very good player with. And we had some bomb barbecue after the game. And I was like, yeah, this is what the NFL life is going to be like. This is really good. And so that's my story with my experience on what it's like getting cut in the NFL. How hard is it to make it through training camp and to kind of get to the end of that road and to see light at the end of the tunnel? But I think about it every training camp because I don't watch very much training camp football because one, it's boring. I don't watch it. I watch it sometimes. I'll watch it if I have a player that's playing in the game that I'm working with, a client, or that if there's a player that's playing on a team who we had at UCLA or Central Florida when I coached there, or maybe a guy that I cross paths with that I know. Like right now, there is Miles Purchase, who's from Denver, Colorado, plays on the Los Angeles Chargers, and he had an interception and took it back about 40, 50 yards. So that's how we Mile High boys do it right there. So I'll sometimes watch games to see how or if other players make some plays so I can give them some big ups, or if they make a play during the game and I can film it and post it on social media and give them a shout out. But for the most part, training camp games and preseason games are just they're just people trying and scrapping and clawing to make the team. Not going to say they're not real football because I've been there before, but I'm trying to watch the real football. So in essence, this conversation was to just tell you that is the one thing you don't want to hear while you're on a team is, hey, coach want to talk to you, bring your playbook. And it's funny because it's changed over time as well. And when I used to play, and I sound old and I feel old by saying when I used to play back in my day, but we had actual playbooks, actual binders with papers in them because we used to have to do an install and they would give us what we were installing as papers with holes punched in them so we can insert them into our 3-ring binder. And we did that all throughout camp and even the season week to week when it got to whatever team we were playing. But now they pretty much, or for the last couple years, most teams have iPads. So each player will pretty much get an iPad that they can have the practice film on, that the game film will be on, that all the cut ups will be on. And so on that will also be their playbook. So they can go and see what exactly this play is talking about. It'll show a diagram of the play. It'll give some information on splits and assignments and, everything from the snap count to formations to motions to philosophy, just all that stuff that's in a playbook. So now when they tell you to bring your playbook with you, they're pretty much saying, yo, bring your iPad with you. And for all my players out there, whether you're in college or you're in the NFL, if you have an iPad, the coaches and the staff can view your time that you're looking on your iPad. Let me say that again. They can view and are aware of the time that you spend on your iPad. They can look to see if you've opened this cut up. They can look to see if you've studied this opponent. They can look to see if you've even opened your playbook. They can look and see what apps you're in. They could trace all that stuff. So if they coach tells you, hey, you need to watch this film or watch this cut up that I made for you, and then you get to the next day and you didn't watch it, that coach knows if you didn't watch it or not because they can get a report on what percentage or how much of the percent of your iPad you're using. They get information on whether your iPad is dead or not, how long your iPad has been dead, when's the last time you logged into your iPad. They get all that information. So if you think, hey, coach don't really know if I'm looking at this or not, I'm here to tell you at both the college and the NFL level, they can get reports. And they probably most likely do get the reports because they want to know who is looking at their plays, who's looking at their playbook, who's watching film. And that alone can get you cut and let go and released if you're not being a professional and not studying your craft and being on top of the work that you do. So, as we wrap up this episode talking about preseason and training camp and cuts, if you know anybody that's on a team or if you have any friends or family that's playing, send them a word of encouragement, shoot them a quick text message, check out their preseason games, let them know how they did, and what plays you saw, what the tackles they made, just anything like that will help them because this month in training camp is just kind of like purgatory. You're there, you forget what day it is, you forget what else is going on in the world. You're pretty much there for football, and you can't wait until those days off or until camp breaks, which is usually about 2 or 3 weeks after camp has started. So once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Hey Drew, Coach Want to See You. Bring your playbook. And I hope you guys never have to worry about hearing a phrase or those kind of words in the business or the work that you do. But outside of that, glad I could bring that here to you on To Be Drew. Love you guys. Stay healthy. I appreciate you guys being able to tune in, liking and forwarding and subscribing to everything I'm doing. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a great weekend.